Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Oh Shoot. Ding, 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 ding. I know. The opening song, it always gets me. I love it. Always love listening to it. Thank you, Matt. Welcome back. This episode is one of those episodes that I would say is an Oh Shoot staple. Since the beginning of time with this podcast, we have done photography horror stories, and today is the day for your crazy stories. Okay, I had over 200 submissions. How I'm supposed to go through and pick them all? Well, I don't. I have someone pick them for me because it is just too much, but also I want to have a genuine reaction when I'm reading these, and sometimes when I pre-read them I know what's coming, and so it's not my real reaction. So this week we have crazy photography horror stories. I just want to say, little life hack for any of you guys that are traveling lately, get a Nuuly box. Truly has changed my life. I for Italy have rented some clothes, mainly just dresses. I think the big thing for me is like I want to wear cute dresses every day in Italy, but like I don't really own the dresses that I want to wear. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing one of my Nuuly dresses. It's super cute. It's like a drop waist, very cute. This is not an ad. They did not pay me for this, but I can put in the description a little link for you guys for my Nuuly discount, whatever. But it's really nice. And a lot of my friends for their workshops, like their photography workshops, actually use Nuuly and like rent clothes, like for like the wardrobe of the actual shoots. So yes, that is my little tidbit, my little travel hack for you guys. Should we just get into it? I think we shall. Let's do it. Some of these stories are long, like really long. This next one, the first one is really long, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy your time. Okay. Get your popcorn out, get your coffee. If it's in the evening, get your drink, your little glass of wine, whatever it is. Okay. Here's our first crazy photography horror story. If you need a sign to not work with family, this is it. My sister-in-law was getting married and she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. My assignment was to find a photographer since I'm also a photographer. I couldn't find anyone in her budget that fit her style. She wanted to hire me, but I couldn't be in two places at once if I was to be a bridesmaid. So I told her she, through me, could hire my second shooter and I would do all the editing, delivery, etc. for free. Okay, so basically it's an associate shooter, the person that you use for your second shooting. So they would only have to pay for my second shooter, which was a few $100. My sister-in-law loved that idea, and my mother-in-law did too, since it was saving $2,000 that I or another photographer would have charged for a full wedding coverage. Something to note about my sister-in-law, I love her, but she doesn't really care about priorities. She never completed her shot list, which I expected her not to since I know how she is. So I just jotted down a few things and had her review it the night before the wedding. She approved. The wedding day came, going great, but it did rain and the ceremony had to be moved inside. After the ceremony, it was no longer raining and the air was extremely thick with humidity and the trees were still dripping. My sister-in-law decided she didn't want to do portraits under the trees, but instead under the porch. This threw a wrench in things because not only was the porch ugly, but there was no room for people to stand to wait their turn for photos. They hung out inside, out of sight, out of mind. No complete shot list, remember? My sister-in-law got tired of being in the humidity and stopped portraits. She went in and I and my associate shooter asked her 3 times if there's anything else that she wanted, and she said no and went on. Fast forward the next day at my house, all the family was there eating dinner, getting ready to go back to their respective homes. My mother-in-law would not come in. We all assumed she had a migraine. Spoiler alert, she was actually mad at me. Fast forward almost a month. The photos are done and delivered. No one's even thinking about the wedding anymore. My mom called me and asked why my mother-in-law was calling her asking for more photos of the wedding day. that I didn't get enough and that there were some specific things missing. I got home and I asked my husband about this. Sure enough, my mother-in-law was mad that there were no photos of my nephew or a large group photo of all parents, kids, spouses, etc. Turns out the whole family was mad at me over this. I was mad at my husband for not telling me sooner. I texted the family group chat, something along the lines of, I'm tired of everyone in this family running their mouth to everyone but the person they have a problem with. And a few minutes later, my mother-in-law called me, yelling and ranting, accusing me of being a bad photographer. I would be lucky to even get an invite to my other sister-in-law's wedding in the future, etc., etc. I told her I did no wrong, that she crossed a boundary by calling my mother when she isn't a part of anything at all, including my photo business. This made her even more mad. By the way, the bride wasn't asking for these photos as she didn't care that they weren't taken because they were not asked for. My nephew quite literally slept through the entire evening, and the bride didn't ask for anything specific. Also, I didn't even shoot the wedding. I just edited and delivered what my associate took. The bride said all was good on her end and that it's an issue with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law even admitted she knew she wanted the photo at the wedding but didn't ask me or my associate to get it. She purposefully didn't speak up so she would have something to complain about later. It was an extremely bad argument with my mother-in-law. She was irritated, and I think it's the only time I've ever cried during an argument with someone. She told me I was treating her like one of my clients because I referred to my contract a few times. I told her, girl, you are my client. I wish I could recall and tell you everything she said. We hung up on bad but apologetic terms, and that was the last time I spoke to her. It will be a year in September. I don't go with my husband to visit them anymore, and they never come here. Thankfully, I still have a good relationship with both of my sister-in-laws. Even if my other sister-in-law asks me to, I will not have a single part in any wedding planning, especially photography. Heck, my mother-in-law may make sure I don't even get invited. We had a fantastic relationship before this, never a single issue. I guess it's true that something always changes a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Something always changes in a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. I'll never shoot for family again. So glad I had a contract. That's actually so crazy. Okay, I feel bad. I feel really bad for you because it's like there's not really much you can do about that. That quite literally was out of your control. Like, and I think the whole thing you're saying about family, I think that's true because I think that if it weren't family, I don't know if the mother-in-law would be doing that to like the actual photographer. I think just because it's you that she's doing that. I'm so sorry. That's awful. That's actually horrible. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Okay. We're going to move on because this next one is also really long. But that's a horror story. That is trauma. That is all the things. And what makes me like the saddest is that you haven't talked to her in a year. That makes me really sad. Okay. The next story. I'm a wedding photographer, and last year I was pregnant during a wedding where I met the most obnoxious wedding videographer I've ever met. I arranged and went to meet with the bride and begin shooting details. Then the videographer shows up and I introduce myself. Turns out he's the groom's cousin, and at first I thought he was just a little eccentric. We go into the getting ready space to shoot the bride getting into her dress, and the videographer grabs all the bags and belongings from the bridesmaids and just hurls them out of the room with no regard for anything being potentially breakable. In his flurry of activity, he knocks a large curtain rod down that falls onto the bride and just about hit her in the head. I mentioned that we have plenty of time in the timeline and that we don't need a rush. We continue shooting that portion of the day. We move into the family portrait session, and I began directing family portraits. He tells me he's going to take a break, but instead he keeps coming over and telling everybody how to pose. He's not in the photos from the couple's list, and he's also not shooting any video during this time, but he keeps telling people to rearrange themselves, and family photos take twice as long because he keeps interrupting me. He also kept running into me when I asked him if we're cool. He also kept running into me, and when I ask him if we're cool, he then tells me to go ahead and take lead on this and everything is good. We get to the ceremony portion of the day. We talk about positioning, what our plans are for shooting the ceremony. We come to an agreement on what that looks like. During the ceremony, however, he keeps running up and down the aisles, getting in front of the parents, and then I'm photographing in the center aisle, and there's plenty of room for him to stand next to me, and he keeps bumping into me and knocked me into the lap of one of the guests. After the ceremony, we do couples portraits, and he tells me to direct them, and I direct them through my normal poses with a lot of movement that we can both capture great shots. He tells me to take lead on posing because he never has any good ideas. But as soon as I start telling the couple what to do, he interrupts me and tells him to do something completely different. Later during sunset photos, I tell him the couple's ready to go and to grab his stuff because he was off chatting with a guest. And I'm taking photos while I'm waiting for him, as I figure it's been a little tricky working with him if I get what I need and he shows up. And then he can direct the couple, get what he needs as soon as he does show up while I'm in the middle of doing something with the couple. He comes over, hip checks me out of the way. After the photos are done, I address him and ask if there's a problem between us and if we could come to a resolution. He tells me there's no problem and he has no idea what I mean. Later, we're setting up for first dances and he tells me not to use flash because he plans to use 3 light stands. I tell him I'll probably use flash for a couple photos and then we'll just rely on his light stands. He proceeds to set up no stands at all in the super dark barn. And during the first dance, the DJ has one small light and it doesn't fill the space at all. I get what I need with my flash. After the dances, he completely disappears, even though the couple wanted to do cake cutting. The couple asks me if they think they should wait for him, and I tell them only if they want a video of it, because at this point I'm getting tired of holding his hand and guiding him through the whole day, especially when he knew the timeline of events that the bride had made. We wait for 20 minutes and then begin the cake cutting. Oh my gosh, 20 minutes is a long time. He comes back from wherever he was. He sees that we're cutting the cake. He runs across the room, knocks over a guest, grabs his camera, and comes rushing over, and then proceeds to hit me in the head with his gimbal. I gave him such a look that he actually apologized to me. I left that wedding the most frustrated I've ever been with another vendor. Yeah, that is crazy. Getting hit in the head with the gimbal, jail. That's so wild. I cannot. It's always a family member, right? It's always the person that is like not necessarily in it for their business, their family, they're doing them a favor, whatever it is. It's always that person. It doesn't matter if it's the photographer or videographer. I feel like I've heard horror stories about both. I've heard horror stories about photographers being really like snappy to videographers. I've heard of videographers being really snappy towards photographers. Like, you're a team, guys. Make it work. Okay, on to the next. I'm realizing all these stories are like really, really long. Like, this is actually crazy, but I will do with it what I can. Okay, next one. This client had a fiance that lived out of town, so she asked if I could fit her engagement photos in the same week that she messaged me. I told her I would because I have a cancellation that weekend. I made a whole Pinterest board and talked a lot with this client. They were very picky to make sure that the shoot was what they wanted. Skipped to the day before the shoot. They canceled on me, told me that they decided just to do their pictures in Hawaii. I got over it and I moved on. But 3 weeks later, she messaged me again saying that the pricing was astronomical in Hawaii and they asked to use me again. She once again asked if I could take their photos that weekend while he was in town. And it was a Thursday that she asked me. I once again agreed to do them. I told her the only time I could that weekend was Saturday morning because I had other shoots. So it was my only free time. She agreed and we set it all up, once again talking about all her wants and needs for the shoot. Friday comes, the day before the shoot, and I send out a reminder text to confirm the shoot. She doesn't answer, so I try again, still nothing until 9 p.m. when she says they don't really feel like waking up early for the shoot and asks me if they can do it later in the day. I remind her that this is my only available time. She said it's going to be too cold in my dress at that time. It was 68 degrees. I once again tell her this is my only time. She asks again if we can push it back a little bit, and I say we can do 7 a.m., so that's 30 minutes after we agreed on. She agrees. I set my alarm for the next day, and the conversation took 3.5 hours, and now it's past midnight. The next morning, I wake up to a text saying, I didn't sleep all night. We'll do the shoot at 9. I call her to once again say that I have other things to do and that I can't do 9. She says, well, my fiance is still asleep. It'll take us at least an hour and we'll do them at 8. Frustrated, I say, okay, knowing that the lighting at this time is going to make my editing time double, but they said that they'd make it worth it. At 8 o'clock, I'm waiting. They don't get to the location until almost 9. I take the pictures with a happy attitude, even though they're complaining about how bright and hot it is, which wouldn't have been a time if we went to shoot at the original time. So it wouldn't have been a problem. I go home, tell them I'll send the sneak peeks tomorrow. I won't have time since the session didn't end until later than I had previously expected. She texts me an hour later asking for sneak peeks. An hour later is crazy. I tell her I haven't even had time to go through them yet. I literally would be like, I'm not even home, bro. Like, that's crazy. She says just to send me some of the raws to make sure that they're not ugly. I tell her no. She keeps asking until that night. I give in. When I get a second, I send her a video going through all the raws to ease her mind. She continues asking the next day, and I send her a few sneak peeks. That's not good enough. She wants to see the whole gallery. She texts me several times a day asking for the gallery, and I'm rushing to get it done. Then she makes up an excuse to come over and ends up going through all of her photos for 4 hours, wasting all of my editing time. And then she tells me they decided to just get married there in 3 days and asks me to shoot their wedding. I tell her I will. And then immediately after the wedding, she begins asking for their pictures, the engagement photos and the wedding photos. Keep in mind, it's only been a week that day since we did the engagement. I give both galleries to them in the next 5 days. Wow, good for you. While she's nagging me the entire time. And they don't even tip me. It was the worst experience ever. Lots of anxiety attacks. And the best part is that woman was my mother? What? Wait, what the heck? You just catfished me for real. Okay, I was literally going to say, you need to work on saying no. But I'm like, bro, that's actually your mom. There's no way. You can't say no. It's your mother. Okay, that's crazy. I mean, you know what? Like, did she know that she was going to get married that quickly? I have a lot of questions. Like, what? And then also, like, the wedding photos and the engagement photos getting delivered at the same time because they're so back to back. That is so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Moving on. Looks like this one is about a maternity session. Oh, by the way, if you wrote that last one, you really catfished me there at the end. Like, you should have told me that was your mom the whole time. Okay. This is the one maternity session that I'll never forget. On Memorial Day weekend, I had a maternity session booked at a state park. It was one of my adventure sessions, which means hiking, exploring, chasing the sunset with your people. My clients were totally on board, even knowing it was going to be hot and a lot of walking. Mama was 36 weeks pregnant and still doing great. The couple brought along their sweet 2-year-old daughter. Everyone was in great spirits. The first part of the session was beautiful. We walked to a grassy meadow and started shooting. Dreamy light, sweet moments, all the things. But because it was a holiday weekend, I brought my husband along. He's a fireman, EMT, and medic, basically trained for every emergency you can imagine. Okay, I don't like that you just said that. That makes me nervous. And I thought it'd be fun to turn the evening into a little family outing with him there. Well, it turned out to be more of an adventure than any of us expected. We wrapped up the first part of the session and headed to another spot with a cliffside view. Absolutely gorgeous at sunset, totally worth the short hike. The park had started to empty out, and we were down at the overlook finishing up when Mama said that suddenly she felt faint. Then she said it again and again. I offered to stop the session. This week's episode is brought to you by Aftershoot, and I have an exciting announcement that Aftershoot is launching AI retouching, which is now in public beta and it's free to use now until September 2025. So this adds a powerful finishing layer to the Aftershoot workflow. Now photographers can cull, edit, and retouch all in one tool without extra costs or the need for additional software. So a few key features with their AI retouching. It has skin smoothing for the face and body, which preserves natural texture, blemish and acne removal, flyaway hair cleanup, glasses glare removal, and it's built right into Aftershoot's existing workflow. So I'm super excited to partner with Aftershoot for this podcast. Specifically, the retouching tool is really awesome. Basically, what it does is you're able to import your edited JPEGs into Aftershoot, and there's like these little sliders for flyaways and face brightening and eye brightening and all the things, and it does such a good job. It's very, very fast, and something that would take me like a really, really long time in Lightroom, it does in seconds in Aftershoot. So their retouching tool is now available. And like I said, it is free until September. So go give it a try. The link to sign up for Aftershoot is in the description of this episode, and use Cassidy for a percentage off. All right, back to the show. Then she said it again and again, and I offered to stop the session, told her to sit down and take a breather. But before anything else could happen, she passed out. Then she started to have a seizure. Her husband was right by her side. I ran full sprint up the trail to get my husband, who was waiting at the car. We had no cell service where we were, so I had to reach the car first to call 911. I called, explained the situation, and my husband bolted down the trail to assess her while I stayed up top waiting for the medics. It felt like it took forever for emergency services to arrive, at least 20 to 25 minutes. During that time, she had another seizure. Her husband stayed with her, and my husband checked vitals and did everything he could to keep her stable. Finally, EMS arrived. She had another seizure as they were assessing her. Her blood pressure was 70/44, dangerously low. They carried her out on a gurney, and I stayed with their little girl, showing her YouTube videos on my phone and doing my best to keep her calm while her dad focused on her mom. The nearest hospital was over 30 minutes away, and once they were safely transported, my husband and I went to grab essentials, clothes, food, toiletries, and toys for their daughter, and brought everything to the hospital. We didn't know if the baby was coming that night or what would be planned, so we wanted to make sure they had what they needed. Thankfully, after fluids and monitoring, the mom was stable. The next day, I messaged to check in and heard that she was back home and doing okay. But then that night, her placenta ruptured. Oh my gosh. She was rushed back to the hospital, but by the grace of God, everything turned out okay. Baby was delivered safely, and both mom and her baby are doing great today. It's been a couple months now. Baby is thriving. Mama's healthy. They've even booked another session with me this summer to capture their sweet little family of 4. I won't lie, I felt guilty at first, wondering if the session had been too much, but they were so kind and even left me and my husband a sweet review about the whole experience. I'll never forget it ever, but it reminded me that behind the camera, real life still happens, sometimes messy, sometimes scary, and being able to serve people in those moments beyond the photos is one of the biggest honors of what I do. Wow, that is crazy. That is so crazy. I'm so glad you brought your husband along. I cannot even imagine. I don't even know what I would do. That's so crazy. That's so scary. It's like I think the added stress of it being like so far away from everything too, like out of cell service, a far drive, that's so stressful. Honestly, you did a good job, but I cannot imagine doing that. Oh my gosh, I'm glad she's okay. Okay, moving on. One of my past clients started her own photography business and completely ripped off my style, branding, and the photos down to the exact posing, locations, and editing. For context, this was a girl I worked with several times throughout the course of a year. Throughout that time, I noticed she had created her own photography Instagram, and I followed her back. I'm never someone to hate on another for starting a photo business. I live in a suburb that's close to a big city, and there's plenty of seniors, couples, and weddings to go around. I supported her, and I even cheered her on publicly and privately, even letting her second shoot for me during a set of mini sessions that I was hosting. That's nice of you. However, about a year ago, I decided to shift my style to be more cinematic and film inspired, which was something that no other photographer in my particular area was offering. At the same time, she stopped showing support for my business, not even liking my posts anymore. It was a couple weeks after this that she started mimicking the exact editing style, posing in locations from my photos for every single shoot. The first time it happened, I shrugged it off with an excuse that she was just learning and getting started. But as she continues, it quickly became something that had 20 plus people reaching out to me, sending her posts in shock. I was told that she was following all of my followers in an attempt to get them to hire her, and I decided to unfollow her photography account for peace of mind. I hate drama, and I didn't want to get any more frustrated with her. I just knew it was not something I wanted to keep seeing. After this, she quickly unfollowed me a couple of hours later, and I was sent screenshots of her posting quotes about how the business is about creativity, not competition, OT, with captions that seemed to fully be referring to me. I personally fully believe that sentiment as well, but I also don't believe in stealing someone's art for your own personal gain. After this, she continued to copy my ideas and my branding down to a T. I finally responded to it on my Instagram story after getting more and more messages. I made a vague and simple post stating that I'm all for community support, but I hated seeing my work copied and stolen repeatedly, and even believe that doing this was a huge setback for all photographers. Not only does the person being copied feel discouraged and discredited, but the person copying loses out on the opportunity to grow creatively and build their own unique brand. She never responded to this, but I had several others reach out and say that they had similar things occur and that they appreciated my take on it. She stopped for a while, but has since resumed copying me, stealing from my work. Recently, someone reached out to me saying she had even copied my exact bio, Instagram stories, and photos from my personal non-photography related Instagram. This made me super uncomfortable, and I decided to remove her personal account as well. Maybe I've let it bother me more than I should, but it's frustrating watching someone from the exact same town copying my brand and work in such an excessive way. Luckily, it hasn't affected my level of business, or I would consider further action. Let me know if there's something that you would do differently in this situation. I'm still learning every day how to navigate the business world and would love to hear some different takes on it. I don't know if there's anything else I would do differently. I mean, you said it yourself that you don't like drama. So yeah, I think what you're doing is all you can do. I think posting that story was fine. Like, you're allowed to say that. It sucks when it's someone that you work so close with. I've never really had this happen to me, but like in the stories that you guys write in, hearing the people that like were really close to you, worked alongside you, and then all of a sudden are like doing, like, literally copying you, it just sucks. You know, it's not fun. Okay. Let's see. Oh, these are like really long. I'm like genuinely surprised at how long they are. So I don't know why they're so long. Sorry, but here we go. This past May, I photographed a wedding at a popular venue in my area. I decided to upgrade my gear this year, and I bought the Canon 24-70 f2.8 lens, and I was so excited to use it. So I started off the day as usual, doing the getting ready photos, first look, couples portraits, and ceremony. Everything was going really smooth, and at times we were ahead of the schedule. Immediately after the ceremony, the couple requested to do a group photo of everyone at the wedding, but unfortunately, the 25mm on my new lens was still not wide enough to capture everyone in attendance because it was such a big wedding. I quickly went into my camera bag and put on my 16mm lens on and put my 24-70 in my crossbody bag. Then, in the middle of saying, "Okay, everyone look at me and smile," my lens falls out of my bag and everyone gasped. I was so embarrassed that I ignored my lens had just fallen. My second shooter went and quickly picked it up for me, and I continued to take that group photo as if nothing had happened. As soon as that photo was done, I went and inspected my lens. Thankfully, there was no damage to the lens itself because it had the lens hood on, but the lens hood took the brunt of the damage. After the group photo was done, I moved over to do family portraits while I sent my second shooter inside to get venue details. During the family photos, my second shooter starts messaging me that there's a weird smell in the venue. I wasn't quite sure what she was talking about, so I just asked if everyone was okay. And once family photos were done, I walked into the venue to talk with my second shooter, and the venue was filled with smoke. Oh my gosh, what? It was quite odd to walk into because guests were starting to be seated at their tables and the staff was ushering everyone inside like there was something wrong. Then, when the bride came into the venue to do her grand entrance, she was instantly panicked at the smoke-filled room, and guests started looking around wondering where the smoke was coming from. And then, as we're looking into the crowd of panicked guests, we see some of them starting to look up at the ceiling. So myself and my couple look up at the ceiling to see smoke pouring out of the vents. I quickly had my second shooter run upstairs to grab all of our camera equipment and stayed with the couple to try to figure out what was going on. As my second shooter was going upstairs to grab our gear, I saw the venue staff start to run over to the windows, opening up every single window, but nobody was telling us what was going on or getting people outside. A few minutes go by, and finally someone from the staff goes over to tell us that it was just a simple heating issue. Confused, I asked more, and they said that they had renovations done recently, that there was paint inside the heating vents, and that was what was burning and causing the smoke throughout the venue. The staff, however, assured me and the couple that the heat had been turned off and the damage was minimal, so there wasn't need to worry. We all waited for the staff to fan it out. We opened the doors to get some fresh air. We waited 15 minutes for the smoke to clear and then proceeded to do the rest of the wedding as if nothing had happened. Definitely not the best way to start my 2025 season. Okay, did anyone else think that this was going to turn into my lens that I dropped caught on fire and then all of a sudden was like burning down the venue? That's really where I thought it was going. Like, that is still crazy though. Like, the fact that the vents are like pouring out smoke, but also I'm a little bit disappointed that your lens didn't catch on fire. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't say that. I'm so happy your lens is okay, but like, wouldn't it have been interesting if your lens caught on fire? Just saying. Okay. Oh, moving on. Ooh, this one we're getting some dates, some receipts. On September 19th, 2024, I took school graduation photos for college. They turned out amazing. I took over 100 photos. I took pictures of over 100 students, and over half of them purchased digital or prints. Good for you. I had 3 students that were upset because the photos weren't retouched. I gave forms to everyone that needed to be filled out, asking for their information, consent to use the images, as well as asking them to select a package, print size options, add-ons, if they want things to be retouched, all at an additional fee, and of course a signature. Wow, that's good for you. That's a lot. I explained to the 3 students that on their forms, they didn't select retouching, and I showed them all the pictures that I took before they left the room, making sure that they liked them and they didn't want to redo anything. They called me unprofessional, and I ruined their graduation, that I should retouch no matter what. One told me they used to work for a photography company called Shutterfly, and that we should have explained the form to each student. They asked for a refund. They paid like $20. Told me to not take pictures of them at the graduation, even though the school had hired me, along with other stuff that I don't remember and honestly don't want to think about that. It upset me a lot in the moment. It was my first time dealing with someone who wasn't happy with their photos. I ended up blocking them, sending the text messages to the person who hired me, and they took care of the situation. Then on October 1st, during the editing process, another grad emailed me asking if she can select the images she wants to be edited and retouched, paying the remaining balance. Okay, all of this over like $10. It says we give them the option to either pay a $10 deposit or the full amount. I said, okay. I put the photos in a gallery watermarked to make sure they couldn't download them and sent it over to her. She never got back with me. October 9th. I love that we're getting dates in here. She finally emailed me back, said, hey, okay, waiting on the link so I can select my photos. I thought it was strange. I resent the link to her, and she never got back with me. Now it's December, and she's finally getting back to me. She needed the digitals and prints by Christmas. I told her that the final payment needs to be made. She kept coming back, basically asking me the same questions that I stated. She eventually called me with her girlfriend on the phone, asking what exactly she did. What exactly did she order? Then proceeding to cuss me out and my mom, while also complimenting how professional we were and how she had a good experience. The whole experience was a whirlwind of emotions, from being excited to confused, anxious, and now it's just really crazy and laughable. Yeah, that's actually crazy. That's funny. Honestly, like over $20. What's the big deal? Okay. So probably one of the most traumatic things that has happened to me in the photography industry so far, and I still think about it all the time. This was early in my photography journey. It had been only I had only been doing it for about 6 months. I was planning this creative family shoot for weeks and I was really excited about it. The whole vibe was a Western chic in a field with zebras vibe. What? With zebras. Dreamy golden hour, rustic outfits, kind of like something out of Pinterest. We had already rescheduled once because something came up for the family, but the day finally came. I packed all my stuff and I drove to the location. This was on a big open ranch with huge pasture, and there were literally 10 zebras, 8 donkeys just roaming around, and it looked so beautiful. Zebras? Where in the world are you seeing zebras? I don't think I've ever seen a zebra before. Actually, never in my life. When I got there, the owners were like, hey, if the kids want to feed the donkeys apples, they can. Just make sure they keep their hands flat. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cute for photos. When the family arrived, I told them about it and they were excited. I double checked with the parents and I said, are you guys sure the kids are good with animals? And they said, yeah, we're country. We grew up around animals. They've done stuff like this before. So we start the session. It's going great. The lighting's perfect. The family's sweet. Everything was lining up picture perfect. Then we drive out to the back pasture where the zebras and donkeys are. The kids start feeding the animals from the car window and they're loving it. Then I had the idea to have them get out of the car to take more candid shots, like kind of where they're standing, laughing, feeding the animals. So they step out. Everything's chill until it wasn't. The little girl walked up to one of the donkeys with an apple. And then all of a sudden, it just bit her hand like really hard and it would not let go. It was tugging at her hand and she was screaming and crying and everything happened so fast. I froze. I was literally 15 at the time and I had no idea what to do. Luckily, the owners were close by. They rushed over with first aid supplies, cleaned up her hand, wrapped it, and thankfully it was just a small cut. But I was in shock. And the worst part, her birthday was the next day. Thankfully, the family was super chill about it. They weren't mad. But the whole situation is burned into my brain and I still get nervous when animals are involved in my shoots. Yeah, that's so scary. Like, what do you do? Like, genuinely, I probably would rush over to her and try to, like, help. I don't know. Like, a donkey's, like, strong, though. Like, there's no way I can do anything to help that. But, like, that's so crazy. I think I did mention that I modeled with a horse in Utah. I feel like I did mention that. And like horses are very strong, obviously. Okay, duh. But like there was a point where I was like walking with the horse. Someone was like, hey, could you guys like walk together? And like I get photos of the two of you walking. So I'm like walking with the horse and I'm pretty close to the horse and I feel the hoof of the horse get caught on the edge of my flip-flop as we're walking. And like kind of skim up against my feet, but like didn't step on me. And then the horse took a step right next to my foot. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, if my foot was 2 inches over, that horse totally would have stepped on my foot and would have completely broken my foot. So it's really scary how powerful animals are. And you kind of have to be careful, especially with kids. Okay, moving on. We're only halfway through, guys. So lock in. If you're listening to this, lock in. Okay. I had a couple who was referred to me by my makeup artist friend who also knew this couple. We did their engagement and everything was amazing. I thought that they were so nice. But fast forward to their wedding day, the bride was complaining all morning, yelling at her mom, having the biggest grumpy face in all of her photos. They had chosen spots with a lot of driving. So a hotel for getting ready and then a church ceremony and then a park for their portraits and then a reception venue. They hired a bus to drive them around while I had to drive myself, which was totally fine. The park was a 45-minute drive from the church, and I made sure to leave a little bit before them to arrive and meet them at the gate. Once I arrived, I messaged the bride where I would be waiting, and then she called me to say that their driver went the wrong way on the highway. She said they'd be there in about an hour. Remember, it already took me 45 minutes to get there, and now I had to wait another hour for them to arrive. Took the wrong turn and it's going to take an hour. I'm not believing that. So I'm sorry. I don't believe that. Call me a skeptic. Whatever. The permit was for 2 hours, so we'd be cutting it super short. Plus we had to get to the venue for after cocktail hour. When they arrived, we only had 20 minutes for their couples portraits and wedding party portraits, and it was starting to rain. Oh gosh. Everyone was really upset. The bride kept having to sit down because she felt nauseous from the drive. I did my absolute best and even photoshopped bridesmaids' bouquets in because they left them on the bus. Bro, what? Good for you. I would not have done that. I did the standard shots and then prioritized their couples portraits, taking them to a lot of different areas in the park for variety. When I delivered the sneak peeks, they seemed really happy with everything. Fast forward to the gallery delivery, they said they weren't happy with their portraits because they can tell everyone was visibly upset and they felt there were none that they wanted to print and hang. Yeah, well, is that really the photographer's fault? I don't feel like it is. Their exact words were, quote, "What can you do for us?" unquote. I hopped on a call with them to see exactly what the issue was with my work, and it turns out that it was nothing. They were upset with the driver, but for some reason, it was now my problem. I asked them if they contacted the company to get a refund or a partial refund, and they said that they thought about it, but they didn't. I told them respectfully I was there for my contract time. I waited and I delivered 40 to 50 couples portraits with variety. So if they wanted to schedule a discounted shoot to get dressed up again, that we could. But I would not be refunding anything. The audacity was crazy. Yeah, that is out of your control, I'm going to say. It's just sad because there's nothing you could have done, right? Like literally nothing you could have done, but yeah, it still falls onto your plate. And I think probably part of the reason it falls onto your plate is because they're realizing, oh, people weren't happy. And it's like, you're the only vendor they're still in contact with, because once someone drives you to your wedding and back, like you're not in contact with that bus company again. So it's like, you're the one they're going to take it out on. And that is not fair. It's not your fault that their faces were grumpy. Could you maybe have said something in the moment? Maybe. But you already photoshopped their freaking bouquets in. I want to know how you did that, first of all. Did you take pictures of the bouquets before? Did you all have them like stand with their hands at their belly button, but with no bouquet in it? If you did, good for you. Okay, on to the next. Every wedding photographer has that story, the one that tops all others. And for me, it was the wedding that I shot while I was battling strep throat and a literal fire. I had been sick for 3 weeks and I somehow made it to this wedding. I was fevered and barely standing. I still powered through the beautiful outdoor ceremony, all the family and wedding party photos, but during cocktail hour, I let the couple know I was stepping away to freshen up before their grand entrance. The reception was set to happen inside a banquet hall on the same golf course. I made my way downstairs to the washroom, which was located inside the golf club's locker room. I sat down on a bench for a few minutes to breathe and gather myself, and that's when it happened. Suddenly, the alarm started blaring. I jumped up, I opened the door into a smoke-filled hallway. I started to check the door handles to make sure they weren't hot, but my brain was fully convinced that the building might be on fire because it was. Outside, the guests assumed that someone had pulled a fire alarm or someone had burned something in the kitchen. But once the coordinator showed up, the real story came out. A staff member had lit all the candles inside the reception hall, shut the doors with no one keeping an eye on the open flames. One of the head table candles caught a decoration and the entire table went up in flames. The sprinklers kicked in, soaked everything, including the decor, food, table settings, even the cake, and no one was allowed back inside. Eventually, I went in to retrieve my camera gear, which thankfully I'd stashed under a table and it had stayed dry. The couple came with me and just broke down in tears. Family had traveled in from around the world and it was heartbreaking. To their credit, the golf course did everything that they could. They covered the entire cost of the wedding, reimbursed the couple for their vendors, offered to arrange transportation for the guests, brought in fast food for the late night, and shifted the whole wedding reception to the outdoor patio. And they made wood fire pizzas outside. Okay, that's nice. They even offered the couple a redo date. But let's be real, how do you recreate your wedding day? What amazed me the most wasn't the chaos, it was the couple's resilience. Their families and friends rallied, and somehow the rest of the evening was filled with joy and laughter. It ended up being one of the most meaningful weddings I've ever captured. In the end, it wasn't about food or florals, it was about love. And it was being surrounded by the people who turn a disaster into a celebration. Oh, that's sweet. That's true. And you know what? What can you do? completely out of your control, out of the couple's control. That really sucks for the venue, though. That really sucks. Someone got fired that night. Thank you. I'll be on tour. My comedy tour. Yeah, that's really crazy. I'm just picturing like the whole table up in flames. Like that visual is so funny to me. Okay. This is the one engagement session that I will never forget. A couple of years ago, I was shooting an adventure engagement session at Nokalula Falls, a local state park that's stunning. If you've ever been, you know that there's a big gorge you can hike down with a beautiful bridge, big rocks, a creek where the waterfall runs into. It's a one-of-a-kind place and it feels magical. I get my couple down there. We walk into the gorge and this huge rock formation that I love. There are 2 massive boulders stacked near each other, and I always thought it was the perfect spot to get some epic shots. As I'm setting them up for the photo, I notice a little fire pit beside the rocks, like someone had built a campfire not long before. Still kind of smoldering, maybe a day or so old. I didn't think much of it until the smell hit us, and it was bad, like really, really bad. My clients were like, "Oh my gosh, what is that? That's awful." And I agreed it was really rough. At first I thought, okay, maybe there's a dead fish nearby or some kind of animal. But the more I stood there, the more uneasy I started to feel. It didn't smell bad. It smelled off. Oh gosh. I do not like where this is going. I'm going to keep reading, but I don't want to. I had this gut feeling and I trusted my gut. I told my couple, you know what? Let's move to a different spot. I was originally going to have them climb around the rocks or maybe even get into the water, but something about it didn't sit right with me, and thankfully they were totally fine with that, so we left. The next day, my husband, who's a local fireman, tells me that the fire department got called out to Nokalula Falls because someone had discovered a dead body. A dead body. Come to find out, that awful smell we noticed, that was it. Oh my gosh. According to what came out in the local news, a man had apparently been sitting on top of that same huge rock, either passed out or overdosed. His body had fallen between those 2 big rocks and had gotten stuck there. It took hours for the crew to recover him. If we had gone just a few feet further around those rocks, we would have found him. Oh my gosh. I still get chills thinking about it. We were out there taking photos, not knowing that there was a body right beside us. I'm so thankful we trusted our instincts and moved on. It would have been incredibly traumatic for everyone if we had discovered that. It was one of my wildest sessions I will never forget, and definitely one for the books. I fear that might be the craziest submission we've ever gotten in. What the actual F did I just read? Let's backtrack here. I'm trying to process this because I literally don't even know. You guys were at this gorge by these rocks. You started to hear the smell, or smell the smell, not hear the smell. And then you're like, let's leave. Don't have a good feeling about it. There was a body literally right in between those rocks. That is so crazy. Okay, that's going in the all-time crazy horror stories. I cannot imagine what would have happened if you guys would have discovered that body. Actually, that would be like so crazy. That would be very traumatic. I'm glad you didn't, because you didn't need to. That's okay. Wow, that's so crazy. I don't even know what to say. Okay, I'm so sorry for your loss. Moving on. I shot a wedding for someone recently that I went to high school with. I didn't expect it to be a crazy day. I'd shot at this venue before and I thought I knew the bride pretty well. She'd been very adamant leading up to the wedding about how important the details, getting ready moments, and special photo opportunities were to her. But once I arrived at the venue, it was pure chaos. Okay, sorry, someone just smashed some bottles outside my window. I don't even know, that was so loud. The bride didn't have any of her details ready, even though we'd gone over that beforehand. We spent a ton of time scrambling around trying to find what she wanted photographed. Then I finally wrapped up details, headed into the bridal suite for getting ready, classic PJ shots. Walked in to find every single bridesmaid already fully dressed, and the bride too. What? Come on. I asked if she was still planning to do those getting ready photos, and she just sort of mumbled that she forgot. It became immediately clear that she was already drunk, like very drunk. Oh gosh. She and her maid of honor were fumbling with her veil while she sobbed hysterically in front of the mirror, repeatedly calling herself a fat dinosaur. Oh my gosh. My second shooter and I just stood there stunned. This was the very beginning of the wedding day. We did manage to get first look photos with her bridesmaids, her mom, and her future mother-in-law. And we were also able to do bridal and bridesmaids portraits, but they were rushed and chaotic. She smiled and cried through all of them. Oh my gosh, crying? Constantly talking about how puffy her face looked and obsessing over how she appeared in every shot. I've never seen a bride so preoccupied with her looks in the middle of portraits. The couple had opted not to do a first look or a first touch, so the first time the groom saw her was when she was stumbling down the aisle, barely able to stand and crying uncontrollably. To add more to the chaos, she had 3 different outfit and accessory changes throughout the day, which only pushed everything even more behind schedule. During couples portraits, all she wanted to do was aggressively make out with the groom, insisting that those would be, quote, the best looking photos. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Family dynamics were already intense with divorced parents on both sides, and wrangling everyone was near impossible. The bride was no help. She could barely form a sentence. It was hands down the most unhinged wedding I've ever documented. After I sent over a sneak peek, she asked if I could make her look less puffy in the photos, so wish me luck as I dive into editing these. Oh my gosh. What do I even say? No, it's cracking me up. Like, details aren't ready. Then finally you finish the detail photos. You walk in, everyone's dressed. Literally everyone's dressed. It's like, what? And then her being like, let's make out. Those are gonna be the best photos. Like, that's actually so funny. I had this couple one time. Oh gosh, this had to have been ages ago. Where like every time we did photos of them, like, and like I told them to kiss, it wasn't just like them kissing. They would actually like full open mouth kiss, and like it would be so just like jarring, because in the photos, like literally there's like a shot of like one of them like with their tongue out. You know what I mean? Like it's like not great shots. So it's just funny. Okay, moving on. I'm so cracking up with that one. I was shooting a wedding in Florida on Clearwater Beach. From the very start, it was all over the place. Nothing was planned, despite me having sent the bride a timeline. She completely ignored the timeline, and she ended up being almost 30 minutes late to the ceremony. Luckily, it was small and intimate, and her mom was officiating, so it wasn't that big of a deal. The ceremony itself was fine, except for the fact that they were facing the way of the sun, so I had to use my flash in broad daylight in order to try and balance the shadows. There was also no music at all when she was walking down the beach, so it was super awkward and silent. We didn't do any bridesmaids photos, groomsmen photos, or even family photos on the beach. We got a few family photos inside of the reception, but that was all. The reception was also very unorganized and unplanned. They had a DJ, which helped me tremendously, trying to keep things in order. Like the first dances and cake cutting. Oh my gosh, that's not your job. That's so crazy. It was kind of boring for the first 30 minutes as the couple went off and mingled with their guests. But then at sunset, me and the couple went down to the beach to do sunset couples portraits. The only problem was that they were already heavily tipsy, and we got maybe a total of 3 poses before they were ready to go inside. We went back inside after, and I thought everything would be fine, so I stepped out to my car, and the reception was being held at a very small clubhouse, so there wasn't many places for me to sit down and chill. For a few minutes, I was in my car to go take some ibuprofen and eat some food. It was during this time that I missed the first dance. I was so upset when I found out that I had missed it when I got back inside. I apologized profusely, and they told me it was completely fine and that they weren't even upset. I wish that I would have been more informed before going outside, as I had asked the bride before I left if it was fine if I stepped out for a few minutes. The rest of the night was fine. I just took a couple of photos of people here and there, but towards the end of the night, I could tell that the bride and groom were so intoxicated. Come to find out that they had gotten into a huge fight that night. It was so bad that at one point, the bride took her rings off and threw them on the ground. Needless to say, this was definitely the most eventful wedding I have ever shot. Yikes. That's really, really bad. I don't even know. I think missing the first dance is probably the worst part of all of that, because that's something that like we try to avoid, obviously missing events, but it's literally like they did it without you. But like they didn't care, I guess. Like whatever. Okay. I only have time for maybe a few more. Oh my gosh, there's so many. I don't even know which ones to pick. Okay. I'll do this one. My life flashed before my eyes while shooting a wedding. Hi, Cassidy. My hubby and I love listening to your podcast. I've learned so much from you and all the submission podcasts. I've been waiting a long time to share this one. Last year, I booked a very last-minute wedding with my highest package. I was very excited as the bride seemed super chill and loved the theme and the setting of the wedding. My husband, who's also my second shooter, and I arrived at the wedding at 9 a.m. to everyone already being trashed. They continued to drink through the getting ready photos, and when it came time for the groomsmen photos, they decided to do the throw the groom in the air photo to get ready for it. And to get ready for it, they all put their hands behind him and pulled out handguns and tried to hand them to my husband, and in his drunken state promised that they weren't loaded. My husband declined for obvious reasons, especially considering there was quite a few groomsmen and he literally couldn't hold all of the guns. Wait, I'm so confused. So they all handed your husband guns? Oh my gosh. The drinking continued throughout the day, and so did the random flashing of their handguns. At the reception, the officiant who was doing the prayer for the meal decided to make a joke in front of everyone and plotted with the groomsmen to pull out their guns when he said, "Speak now and forever hold your peace." No. That is so crazy. He called me over for a photo while he spoke. So I did, and when all the drunk groomsmen pulled out their guns, they were aimed at me. No. Oh. They proceeded to slam on the table after pulling them out and still aimed their guns at me. They were all supposedly not loaded, but once I saw a drunk person say the same thing and continue to shoot off the gun indoors on accident, I'm very skeptical. The groomsmen continued to walk around with their guns, leaving them on the tables where plenty of kids were around. Even ended up losing a gun that day. As the rest of the day went on, the heavy drinking continued, and as we're leaving, we walked out to 12 or 13-year-olds completely trashed, laying on our car, whining about how drunk they were. While my husband and I still had a great time, besides the gun and the over-drinking scenarios, I walked away feeling like the wedding provided a good opportunity for really bad things to happen. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Not them being like, does anyone speak now or forever hold your peace? And all of the groomsmen pointing their guns at you. What? No. The way, okay, if someone actually did that to me, I would drop to the ground. I would run. I don't care. I do not care what I'm there to capture. I'm out of there. I don't run very fast, but I would try, you know? That's crazy. And then them being like, oh, they're not loaded. And like someone accidentally firing one, like, be so for real right now. That one has me cackling. Okay. Let's do this one. This one's not too long. My wife and I are a wedding photography and videography duo. We were at our friend's wedding as guests, bridal party to be specific. When the photographer showed up, she came in 20 minutes late. Then came to show the bride how dark the ceremony space looked with the pictures on her camera. That immediately started to stress out the bride that the photos wouldn't be good. Additionally, they had booked her as a package with the videographer and told the bride, oh, he couldn't come, so I'm just going to be doing video, which resulted in her using her phone the entire day for video. Oh my gosh. Then she said, my flash isn't working, so I'll just fix it when I have a break. Luckily, we had our equipment in the car. My wife offered her flash and went to the car to grab her personal flash with the photographer, just to find out she didn't have it attached correctly to her camera. After getting that situation fixed, she spent the rest of the day mentally draining the bride and groom. She had no leadership or planning skills. Pictures were not organized, and they wouldn't have gotten many family or bridal party photos without the bride and groom asking for them. During the bridal party photos, the bride asked for a specific location and she said, yeah, but I don't want to have to take my flash off, so let's just stay here. Oh my gosh. She spent most of her time talking to vendors and sweet talking guests. The bride and groom's formal photos consisted of 10 pictures in 5 minutes, and they had to pose themselves. She mentioned multiple times that she just needed to, quote, take a break, and was found sitting in the bride's room multiple times throughout the night. To top it off, she left before her hours of coverage were up, and in turn missed half of their dance party, their private last dance and their send-off. Luckily, my wife stepped in and was able to capture those moments. It was truly disappointing to watch our friends stress about something that should have been the very least of their worries. If you don't know what you're doing, figure it out before you mess up an entire wedding. Lesson learned, always have your gear with you. So that sucks that like as a wedding guest, you had to kind of like make sure that nothing bad was happening. You saved the day for real with that flash, but that's crazy. That sucks too. I'm sorry. It's always hard when you're like in a wedding or attending a wedding and then there's like another photographer and you're like mentally watching them always, and subliminally you're always like, they should be in this spot for this shot or whatever, because that's how you would do it. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Okay, we're gonna do one more good one, because some of these are like really long. Love you guys, but they're like really, really long. And I'm like trying to not spend forever on this episode. It's already been an hour. So, okay. Let's do this one. This was my very first wedding ever, and I'm pretty sure the couple didn't stay married, and I think it was my fault. Oh my gosh. Lots of lessons learned at my first wedding, like most of us, and I'm pretty sure I learned every lesson to be learned on my first try. It would take me all day to explain everything that went wrong, but I'll tell you the two most entertaining parts. I was paid $200 for this wedding, and I split it with my second shooter. I'd never photographed a wedding before, but it did help to photograph an event where the main photographer stood up high in the back of the room, super zoomed in, and had me and one other photographer closer up to the action. I figured that this was standard procedure, so I tried to do this for this wedding. I stood in the back of the ceremony on an 8-foot ladder, and I quickly realized I was missing everything during the processional. Okay, this is not funny, but that's just funny to me. Like, you're on a ladder at the back of the ceremony and the bride is walking down the aisle and you're not getting that shot. Okay. I quickly realized that I was missing everything during the processional, so I tried to scurry down the ladder before the bride came down the aisle. I ended up falling off of the 8-foot ladder right as everyone stood up to turn and look at the bride. So, of course, rather than looking at the bride, everyone was looking at me splattered on the ground. I quickly got up and dusted myself off. Everyone was pretty nice about it and pretended like it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was horrible. Fast forward. I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm so sorry. I gotta pull it together. I'm just picturing you falling off a ladder and everyone watching you. I'm sorry. It's not that funny. Okay, fast forward to family photos. Of course, I didn't have a family shot list. I told the family to gather around, and if anyone wanted a picture with the couple, to get in a line and take a picture with them. Okay, that's a really bad idea. At this point, everyone was already drinking, and apparently the mother of the groom was not aware that family photos were happening, so she wandered off. Once she realized she had missed the pictures, she picked a fight with the bride because she felt like the couple forgot about her. Why she wouldn't be picking this fight with her own son or me is beyond me. The groom ended up siding with his mother and the fight exploded. The couple ended up storming off, leaving the wedding in 2 separate vehicles long before the night was supposed to be over. I hung around a bit, but I ended up leaving a good 2 hours before my contracted time was up because the couple never came back. I delivered their wedding photos, heard nothing back, which makes me wonder if they're still together. You know what? They probably said, I think we should end it because our wedding photographer fell off the ladder. I'm sorry, like, I just can't with you, like, being on a ladder at the back of the ceremony while people are walking down the aisle, and then you being like trying to being like, oh my gosh, I need to be at the front, and you scurrying down and literally like flying off this ladder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're here to tell the tale. Okay, guys, that's the end of our horror stories episode. What a roller coaster. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you had a good giggle with me at the end. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week for another episode. I hope you're so excited because I am. I'm so excited. I'll see you there. Have a great rest of your day.